This is the Shoot Once Podcast, a podcast about the Columbus Blue Jackets and the NHL, a member of the Hockey Podcast Network. Welcome, everyone, to the Big Play-In Preview Show. We've got a lot going on this week. We're going to be breaking down the Blue Jackets and the Maple Leafs matchup. We've got an awesome interview with Jeff Nash from Rinks Around the League. And a lot to talk about. Craziness, just insanity happening in Arizona right now. But a lot to get to, so I'm excited to get to it here. Starting off, just a refresher for those of you who can't pay as much attention to this and spend as many hours as someone like me, who I shouldn't. It's not safe for me. But I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff throughout the day and the week. But it starts off next Saturday. We've got the exhibition games coming Wednesday and Thursday, which will be fun to watch. It'll be fun to kind of get into it and get a sense of what we're looking at before it's a playoff game. But this really starts in earnest next Saturday. So the reason we're doing the play-in show now is the next show won't come out till next Monday, and by then we'll have 2 days of playing games playing rounds happening. But Saturday kicks off in the best of 5 in the Eastern Conference. Rangers and Hurricanes at noon. Panthers and Islanders at 4, Canadiens and Penguins at 8. In the Western Conference, there's a 3 o'clock game that's going to be Chicago versus Edmonton and Winnipeg versus Calgary in Game 1, this is going to be great. Sunday's the day we're all super looking forward to here. We get the round-robin game in the Eastern Conference, Flyers and Bruins at 3 o'clock. Then at 8 o'clock, Jackets and Maple Leafs. In the Western Conference, you'll have the Coyotes and Predators in Game 1, the Blues and the Avalanche in that round-robin game in the middle there, and then Wild Canucks at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So, again, just hockey all day these days. It's going to be great. I cannot wait for it myself. I'm super excited about what's going to happen with all this. And as an explainer to those of you who might not quite be sure why you're seeing the round-robins there kind of earlier, the general plan is these round-robin games are going to be, if there's 3 games in a day in a city, the round-robins will be the middle game. And the reason for that is the round-robin game is easier to schedule because they are going to have regular season overtime. So if that early game goes to multiple overtimes, then it can only push this game. We know what that middle game is going to be is closer to length. So it's exciting. It's really good. I'm looking forward to it. I wanted to start. I know a lot of Blue Jackets fans. You guys read The Athletic, you read The Dispatch, you read The Cannon from SB Nation. You follow the Blue Jacket stuff. First Ohio Battery, you read those things. So some of my preview stuff is going to be from the perspective of Maple Leafs, from the Leaf stuff I've been reading, because there's a lot of great. The good and the bad of being in the center of the Maple Leafs universe, there's kind of an overinflated sense that the Maple Leafs are the center of everything. But the good side of that is there's so many people watching their stuff that there's a lot of good breakdowns of it. And as the team playing them, we get to see a lot of good breakdowns. So here, Leafs Nation did a really great write-up here by Nick D'Souza, breaking down essentially the concerns the Maple Leafs have going into it. The mini battles, as he puts it, which I found to be a really interesting read. One being puck possession versus quality chances. And in this, he goes through it and talks about how to win each battle and how this is going to go. Now, one thing I do want to talk about as we're getting into this, over and over and over again, from every source I've seen, they've talked about, this is the skill versus will series. I hate that. That's ridiculous. And the reason I hate it is, obviously there's lots of players in the Maple Leafs who really want this win. The big ones you're thinking of are guys like Tavares, even their young guys like Matthews and Marner and all them, and Nylander. They know the narrative around them. They know the story of you can't win anything, you've never won even a round. So they want this. They really do. Jason Spezza, he's a veteran who really wants to win this because he's never won a Stanley Cup. This may be one of his last chances. He knows that. These guys know that. And then on the Blue Jackets side, yes, the Blue Jackets do not have quite the pure scoring talent that the Maple Leafs have. We've got better defensemen. We might have a better. One of our 2 goalies might be better than Frederik Andersen. I don't know, but it's just I don't like. It's such a simple way to discount things and be, oh, this is skill versus will. It's a difference in styles, and it is somewhat necessitated by what talent you have. But for the Blue Jackets, it's going to be about lulling the Leafs in with this puck possession stuff, because the Leafs are really good. Something that you will watch during this series and that will drive Blue Jackets fans mad is there will be times Toronto has the puck and it looks like the Blue Jackets just can't get it away from them. When those things happen, start looking for when do the Maple Leafs make mistakes, because the Blue Jackets, something they are going to be looking for is trying to take that moment because the Maple Leafs, what they love to do when they have the puck, their defensemen, the ones that score, will start trying to come on in. They'll start coming down from the top of the ice, start trying to create pressure right in the goal zone. They don't do what the Blue Jackets do. When you've watched the Blue Jackets play, when you've seen Jones or Werenski or Nudavara or whoever it is starting to creep down into the offensive zone, you'll see a winger start to fade back towards the blue line so that we can cover, so that we don't get a lot of odd man rushes. The Leafs don't play it that tight defensively. So there will be chances where the Blue Jackets will get a turnover, or if they shoot the puck and it bounces off the goalie's chest and there's a defenseman right there who can throw it up to a winger who's at the blue line, you could definitely see some 2-on-1s for Columbus. The trick is going to be who gets those 2-on-1s. Because if you're like me, it seems like half the time you watch, every 2-on-1 is Riley Nash or Boone Jenner. And I'm not saying they're not good players, but there's other Blue Jackets I would much rather get a 2-on-1 going than Riley Nash and Boone Jenner. One of the things he's talking about here, the Leafs breakout versus the Columbus forecheck. And this was a really good piece that I would recommend reading here. It's Jack Hahn's newsletter he does. And he compares the Blue Jackets defense to an icebreaker ship. And it's not a bad way to illustrate it, because he talks about the icebreaker ship, and you can see the image here if you're watching on the YouTube channel. If you're just listening, you can hear me talk about it. Essentially, an icebreaker ship, it's a ship that has a strong point, but then a strong hull. So the idea is that strong point breaks through the ice, clearing the way for other ships. Well, the Blue Jackets' defense, the forecheck, is what's known as a 1-2-2. Meaning there is one forward who will push into who will stay almost in the opponent's defensive zone, even when they have the puck, to try and force them to put the puck to one side or the other. Then you have two forwards to try and either push them up against the wall to cut off their passing lanes, things like that. And then you have two defensemen staying back at the blue line to try and prevent entry if they get through there. And the Maple Leafs, they're talented enough that they can get through that. They are fast enough. But will they be disciplined enough is the thing. Because this requires a lot of trusting your teammates, trusting what you're seeing to get through it there. With the Blue Jackets, they hold to their defense. And it's what's made that team so good this year, is that we hold to our defensive capabilities. We try and not let many quality chances through. And even when they do come through, we hold our 1-2-2 in the defensive zone, where the defensemen are staying down on near the goalie, helping, keeping the slot, the slot passes from happening, and the forwards try and minimize the passing opportunities so you can create a turnover. And those cross the ice opportunities, that's the worst thing you can see. If you see a pass go across the ice and it's not intercepted and the other team still gets a shot off, it's bad, guys. It's not what you want. So that's going to be another part of this breakdown here and what needs to happen there. One of the things he talks about is they need to play physical hockey, and D'Souza, somebody who's watched the Maple Leafs and watched them play in the playoffs last few years, he knows more about this than I do. And what he talks about is the Maple Leafs in the last couple of years seem to have not been able to figure out this line, especially in the playoffs, of you hit a point of being too physical, you start getting calls, you start getting penalties. And how it seems like the last few years when they've lost to the Bruins seem to know how to go right up to that line. And maybe it's just as simple as the refs don't call it on the Bruins as they do on the Maple Leafs. But that physicality of the game is something the Blue Jackets are really good at and very, very talented at getting around. As far as knowing how to prevent, as far as keeping the game tough. making it so that they're getting those hits in, making it so that they are doing so without getting the penalty called on them. The Blue Jackets have shown a very good ability to do this, and last year it was really well shown when Kucherov got suspended in the playoffs. The Blue Jackets are really good at getting under team skin because they play that tough defensive style. When you have a freewheeling offensive team, if they can't get through on offense and they don't play good defense to try and back it up, you start getting those problems of you get frustrated, you take an extra swing late in the scuffle, that sort of thing. Whereas the Blue Jackets, because they're getting that defensive stops going in, they don't do it quite as much. And the other thing is a lot of the Blue Jackets fight. I mean, let's just be honest about it. There's not many players in the Blue Jackets who aren't willing to get into a scuffle if they don't have to. So it's interesting to see that. Now, on the Columbus positive side of things, Sportsnet had a good piece out a week or two back by Andrew Berkshire about how Seth Jones may be a big difference maker for this team. And I know there is now a continuing analytics debate about how good he is. I'm still of the opinion that Seth Jones drives offense on this team, that he creates things, he makes it so that other teams have a harder time getting things through, and that he makes it easier there. What you're seeing here are breakdowns where the Blue Jackets are able to essentially what Seth Jones is able to do is when he's playing defense, he's strong defensively. He stops slot passes. He stops. He kind of works on shot attempts. He's good at doing those things and then getting the puck down the ice when he has it. And that having a healthy Seth Jones back on the ice is going to be very good for the Blue Jackets, which leads me to a piece that Allison Lukin wrote today. And I remembered seeing this once she started talking about it because it did happen for a very short period of time, that you could see Zach Werenski and Seth Jones together on the power play. Now, they did this for a while back in December before Zach Werenski got hurt. Then after he got hurt and came back, they didn't really go back to it, but it looks like they're looking at it again. And it's a decision that just makes sense. It's something that in my mind, is something you would want to do, something that... And the reason I say that is Seth Jones and Zach Werenski both have particular offensive skills. Seth Jones has the big cannon shot that's really good. Zach Werenski is a little more shifty and has a nice little flip shot he does. The wrist shot, I mean... So these are the kind of players you would want on that power play that's been struggling. And I understand that from some perspectives it's, well, no, if you put Jones on one and Werenski on the other, then you have that talent spread out. Well, when we've had it spread out, it hasn't worked out well. For a team that has issues scoring, consolidating some of that offensive firepower onto one power play makes more sense. And it's strange because on this team, our offensive firepower is defensemen in some ways, but then you just use it to make that power play better. So I'm very intrigued to see what the Blue Jackets do. I'm wondering if they're going to run this against the Bruins in the exhibition, or if they're going to try and keep it a surprise. But I mean, now that there's an article out about it, and again, John Tortorella is not the kind of coach who really feeds on, we're got to keep something in there and have a bag of tricks or anything. That's just not what he does. He tends to just go out and play, and our guys will have to beat your guys and just have to outplay them. So I'm as of the opinion that this will be cool to see. I think this is a smart move. I'm interested in seeing it for a couple of games. I mean, if it doesn't work for a couple of games, we all know Tortorella has no problem shaking things up and moving things along, and he very well might. But I think this is probably a smart way to go, and will be a wrinkle that the Maple Leafs probably aren't overly ready for. They're used to seeing the four forwards, one defenseman, and on top of that, Zach Werenski and Seth Jones. These are unique players in the NHL. I mean, we know that the offensive moving defenseman is a thing that's happening now more and more, but they're very good at to have two of these types of players on one team and to be on one pairing. I still think messes with hockey players to an extent. We're getting closer to a time of what we call positionless hockey, where there's not really defensemen and forwards anymore. They all just play the game, but we're not there yet, so I think this still throws teams off a little bit, and I'm interested to see how it will play out in everything that's going on. The Athletic had an interesting piece out about, is Pierre-Luc Dubois number one center? Experts opine on the hurdles he must clear. So some of this is some long-term stuff for him. The ideas in this range everywhere from, yes, he's definitely number one center, to he's got some things to work on, to somebody saying, well, it's not if he'll be a star, but when. What I think we need to see in this series out of Pierre-Luc Dubois, this is a chance for him to really push himself to the front of the NHL stage a little bit. And this is what a lot of Blue Jackets will find. Yeah, you beat Tampa last year. And that was great. And it was a huge story. As we all know, the hockey media revolves around Toronto. Just revolves around it. It's a joke that whenever a story breaks out in the NHL, somebody's first response is, okay, but how does this affect the Leafs? Which is just the normal response, because obviously everything has to be centered on the Leafs somehow, right? Why not? So, to the point that when the Kraken released their colors this week, somebody did the tweet joke of, how does this affect the Leafs? And almost immediately someone had the quote about what Austin Matthews thought of the name and logo, because that's important. It's not. But some of these players, in growing their reputations and trying to, and I don't know if they care about their reputations, but in how they're perceived around the league, what happens in this series can go a long way towards that happening. If all of a sudden you see Seth Jones and Pierre-Luc Dubois dominate this series, then next year they will start the season in conversations for trophies and awards and all sorts of stuff, which I know hasn't happened yet. Seth Jones a little bit for the Norris, but that's what we'll be seeing. For Pierre-Luc Dubois, what needs to grow in his game, because the defensive part of it tends to look pretty good. But I remember specifically this year in one game they played against the Maple Leafs, Pierre-Luc Dubois had the puck down in the corner, and essentially Austin Matthews was on his back, and he essentially just pushed him back to get in front of the goal. And I don't remember if he even scored the shot. It was just the fact that just using his size and strength, he just created that space. And what I want to see out of Pierre-Luc Dubois in this series is elevating to that point of showing to the whole league he's the number one in the NHL, that he is the type of center you can win long-term with. Will he pull that off? I don't know. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm not going to make predictions on this series, so to speak. If you want to hear a prediction I gave, House of Hockey on their podcast, I think it was last week, they had a bunch of us from the Hockey Podcast Network record expectations for our play-in teams, and I did one there. What I fully expect to see are 3 to 4 really hard-fought games, and I fully expect to see one game where Toronto wins in a blowout. Just a game where things don't go right for the Blue Jackets, where they... And by blowout, I mean something like Toronto wins like 4-1 or 5-2 or something like that, like a 3-goal win. Because I expect there to be one game where things just don't go right and Toronto's skill just comes out and their great shooters just come out. Now, that being said, could the same thing happen the other way? Yes, definitely. We saw the Blue Jackets do it to Tampa, so I don't have any doubt they could do it to the Maple Leafs. But, obviously we don't have Panarin anymore on that, but I think some of these guys could step up and we could have a big scoring game in one of these. Now, near the end of the week, there were some real issues because during all of these little scrimmages the Blue Jackets have played, they have been the shooting's just been the scores have been ridiculous. It's looked like all-star games. Apparently, John Tortorella was kind of ticked. There's two ways I think about this, and none of them am I too worried about. One, when you watched them, they weren't hitting like they were playing real games. They really weren't. They weren't playing Blue Jackets hockey in big parts of it because they just weren't hitting their own guys, knowing I've only got so many guys, and it felt like the players kind of were like, we're not going to bang each other around for this. And maybe that's not what Tortorella wanted to see, but I get why they did it. The other part of it is when I was a kid, I did plays and stuff in high school and some in college, and there was always this kind of feeling from a director, from the guys who'd done the shows for years, saying things like, "Well, you don't want the dress rehearsal to go too well. You kind of want the dress rehearsal to be a bit of a mess. The last big rehearsal you do before you do the show." It's like, well, why? Why do you want it to be a mess? It's like, well, that way you know what you're doing wrong. Because if you don't make a mistake or you don't run into a potential problem, you'll probably run into it the night you do the first show, and then it'll be a big mess. So maybe that's a good way to look at it. That we want to have the bad night now, the bad events now, so we can get them out of the way. Either way, I'm really looking forward to it. I cannot wait for this. I think the Blue Jackets will hold their own. In a 5-game series, it's hard to say who's going to win because it's just hockey's such a weird, random sport. I'm super looking forward to it, though. If the Blue Jackets get to the next round, I will not be surprised if they get into the actual playoffs. If they do win, I will be super excited to see how Toronto melts down. And by Toronto, I don't mean the Maple Leafs specifically. I mean kind of the Toronto area and media bubble of people talking Leafs all the time. I will. If the Blue Jackets win this series, what you all need to do is go find a radio app that plays sports radio out of Toronto internationally. Because if the Blue Jackets win this series, you need to turn on Toronto sports radio the next morning. That's something I always enjoy doing, turning on sports radio in a city where a big story happens and you get to hear what the fans think, because it's always kind of entertaining. So I would highly recommend that, folks. It'll be a good time. But now we're going to jump to our interview with Jeff Nash. Got a quick message from the Hockey Podcast Network first, but then we've got our interview with Jeff Nash, and I'll be right back. And then after that, we've got a couple other things to discuss, some just insanity going on in the league, but then we'll be right back to that.
Some enforcer-based podcasting coming at you, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network.
And now Semenko out in front of the goal, pounding away at Joe Kocher, who's down on the ice, holding the back of his head.
Actually, what really surprised me, especially with Twitter being like Leaf Nation, was Grimson over Colton Orr. That voting really surprised me. I didn't think that would happen.
Don't forget to catch the Fourth Line Voice podcast wherever you find your podcasts, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.
Mark Bergevin. And everybody goes on and on with the whole PK thing and blah, and he hated him because he doesn't like fun and blah, blah, blah. I have heard from a few people that Mark Bergevin's hilarious.
No, this guy was a riot. He would have to be at the bar and he's like, "Oh, I just had a penis colada." And the girls would like give a double take and be like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I had the penis colada, it's not bad,
Enforcer-based podcasting wherever you get podcasts from.
Well, everyone, with the Shoot Ones podcast, welcome Jeff Nash from Rinks Around the League. How are you doing there today, Jeff?
I'm doing great. It's the players arrived today in the city, and I think the city and everybody around here is pretty excited.
That's awesome. It's got to be a different experience as a fan being in these hub cities. For all of us, it feels like kind of this faraway thing. For you guys, you see it on the streets of your city, how things are changing. I mean, as someone who lives in Edmonton, what does it look like for you? I mean, just noticing the differences that you've seen day to day on everything.
To be honest, it's I think with what they probably would normally do, I think even just excuse me, when I was in Calgary when they did a big playoff push, and then Edmonton did went 2 rounds when I was with the team a few years ago, and they were able to put up like banners, and you saw a lot of people kind of displaying their kind of excitement for it, and it's a little different this go around just because there's not a whole lot. Like in my video that I just published a few days ago, you can see some of the things that they're building, but there's not a whole lot of there's no banners. Some cities have like the banners above the traffic lights and on light poles and that kind of thing, and they haven't really done that. So it's a little different. You would think there'd be a little bit more, to be honest, but I do know that just during COVID and tough economic times, they might be limited in doing that. So, but definitely the people around here, it's definitely the talk of the town. People are pretty excited to see the teams, and obviously the Oilers hit the ice again.
Yeah, it's it's crazy just how everything's gone. Now, for people who don't know you or haven't watched your YouTube channel, Rinks Around the League, what's your background in hockey? How'd you get into? I know you worked with the Oilers. What did you do with them? And
Yeah, so born and raised here in Alberta. I grew up in a really small town of Irma, Alberta, which is about 300 people, really small. So I played hockey all the way up till junior B in Wainwright, which is a neighboring town. So I've played hockey. I was an official to kind of earn extra money in high school. So I've kind of reffed and lines. And then, just kind of kept dabbling in it. I was a columnist for kind of a weekly junior hockey newspaper here in the province. And then kind of my first real big break was with Hockey Canada, which is the head amateur association here in Canada, equivalent to Hockey USA. And I was with them during the Vancouver Olympics, which was a pretty exciting time. I was the video photo coordinator at the time, and did that for a few years, and then caught my other really big break with the Edmonton Oilers as manager of video production. So I was with the Oilers for about 5 seasons, and it was a really cool experience. The 5 years that I was there, I covered everything from Connor McDavid's draft year, his rookie year, the farewell Rexall place. We said goodbye to our original barn, and I covered the construction at Rogers Place, which is where the Hub City playoffs are being hosted. I covered that building from a hole in the ground all the way to the completed structure that it is now. So I covered a lot of stuff. It was a lot of fun, and I had to step away mainly for being home with family. I have 4 young children at home, so being on the road with the team, it definitely took its toll on family life and the marriage and stuff. So I had to find something a little bit more close to home.
now that makes a lot of sense. I can, being on the road as much as you are, that would be a rough go. So as far as the original inspiration for your YouTube channel with the talking about the different rinks around the league, was that something you were always interested in or became interested in as you started traveling around and seeing these buildings, or what was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, when I grew up in the small town, like the hockey arena, you would travel to other towns around your town, and they're such small towns that the arena was like the epicenter of the community. Like whenever you drove to the town, you would always be able to see where the rink was, because it's usually typically the biggest structure in the town. So it physically and metaphorically, it was the heart of the community. And I kind of knew when I was with the Oilers, and I would travel around all the different teams and cities in the U.S. and in Canada. I definitely wanted to capitalize on the opportunity to be able to travel. And, I've been to all the rinks in every NHL city. And, every time I went to the rink, I was really intrigued on what made each one different. And maybe a little bit when they were constructing Rogers Place, seeing from a construction point of view how these buildings are actually built and how much goes into that. I'm just really interested on how each team had their different take on a rink. They're all different. I mean, most people kind of look at it and they're like, "Oh, they're all the same. They're all just hockey rinks." But when I go there, I would notice all the different characteristics of each one. The one in Columbus, for instance, I think I did my review of Columbus and First Nation Arena is it's a hidden gem. Like me being a Canadian in Alberta, for whatever reason, I didn't think hockey when I think Columbus, Ohio. I just didn't register in my brain that it's like a big hockey place. But when I went to First Nation, I was just blown away. It's a really nice rink. I always tell people that it's a hidden gem in the league, because I love the brickwork. I mean, I love and hate the cannon. I'm sure fans love it because it annoys the heck out of the opposition. I mean, when I was there with the Oilers, I think we lost like 6-2 or something. You guys hammered us, and they fire it once when they introduce on the ice, and they fire it once when they win a game. So I heard that thing like 8 times. It was crazy. But yeah, just And what I did when I went to all these rinks is I took photos. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if I have one up behind me, but I would take photos of the same place in every rink, and I kind of would line it up on my office cubicles, kind of like postcards to remind myself that I've been there. And every time, like, people walk by, like, "Oh, that's so cool! Like, which one's the best in the league?" And I would give my take on it, but I would always tell them, like, "Hey, it's all subjective." And the reason why I did this series was I wanted to give each rink kind of its own little review, and I would hope people would kind of binge watch all of them, and maybe some stick out, like the one in Columbus. Again, I had no idea how cool of a rink it was, and that was really my goal, is to give NHL fans kind of an unfiltered, un-NHL view of each rink. And for them to be like, "Hey, you know what? Let's take a road trip to Columbus. I heard that rink is really cool." And that was really the drive, is to show people each rink is different, and there's some hidden gems out there, and to kind of persuade them to visit these rinks. And hopefully with all this COVID business, fans will get an opportunity to do that in the next year or two.
Yeah, I it's funny how I hear your sentiments about Nationwide Arena, because that's kind of what you hear echoed around the league.
Oh,
People hate
I was calling it First National, wasn't I?
Yeah,
Nationwide. Sorry.
But it's that canon people love and hate it. In Columbus, we love it because it's our thing. We love that people hate it and that it scares them. I mean, every time reporters send out tweets showing people jumping at it, we just love it. So.
Oh, totally. And it's what I loved, and I think I had in my review of my video, is, I don't know if they still do it, but they put half cannonballs up on the wall for every goal that was scored. And I'm a big sucker for branding and logos and just characteristic of each building, and I love that. Like, I love the fact that they have balls in the wall being shot by the cannon, and it's signed by the player. Like, that's phenomenal. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is a little corny, but I liked it when I saw it, because I'm like, oh, the idea is that when the cannon fires, the cannonball actually goes somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Shot somewhere. So I mean, getting into these hub cities,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty obvious from how the virus and how things have been handled. I mean, do you think the NHL made the right decision going both to Canadian hub cities, and that they picked the right ones for doing it in?
Yeah, I mean, just because of my day job and being pretty much literally in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic here in Alberta, it's a little mixed question for me, because did the NHL make the right decision going to Canada? Absolutely. Like, the cases down in the States are just it's kind of scary and kind of unfortunate that it is that bad down there, down south. So in terms of the decision to have everything up in Canada, to me it's no brainer. Like, if you want to do it safely, you want to have limited cases, you got to have it in Canada. What was interesting, and like I said in my video, is I've kind of had limited time to really dedicate to follow along. But what I was able to follow along, as Edmontonians, we're pretty proud that we got selected. However, like, the selection process, I mean, from the get-go, and from people in the league that I'm still keep close contacts with, it was always Vegas. Vegas was the number one area that they wanted to go to, and the players wanted to go to. They had the infrastructure, the hotels, everything. And it was always Vegas. And then it kind of got whittled down to Vegas, Vancouver. That was a rumor for a long time. And then, in my opinion, it was almost at the last minute they finally said to themselves, "Hey, look, we can't have it in Vegas because cases are going up again. So we've got to have it in Edmonton." So I kind of feel like Edmonton, we're happy that it got selected, but we're also kind of like, it took a pandemic for Edmonton to host it. It wasn't, the NHL's first go-to. It was, the players want to go to the Vegas and other cities. And so we kind of feel like a little bit of a runner-up, but hey, we'll take it. We're happy it's here.
The Vegas choice always seemed kind of strange to me because I get that they were all, oh, we want to do Vegas, and the amount of hotel rooms made sense for that, but it's not like the players were going to get to go to all the places in Vegas. It's not like they were going to send them into shows and casinos and all that. I mean, the bubble was going to happen, and honestly, probably the worst thing for the bubble going to Vegas was when Vegas started reopening casinos and started having people come back in, because at that point you can't control what's going to happen, and no casino is going to let you shut down huge sections of their concourses or areas the way that Edmonton's got, areas shut off, and in Toronto they've got the exhibition area and whatnot, BMO Field all shut down. I mean, nobody in Vegas was going to let you do that. So
yeah, and and even saying that here in Edmonton, like our cases, comparatively speaking, aren't skyrocketing like it is kind of in the southern states, but it is starting to go up, which is a little bit concerning. And I read the rules with when the NHL put out their release, kind of stating what the defined details of the hub city and stuff. And when I read through it, one there's a couple red flags. One was there's a paragraph in there that all the hotel staff and the arena staff and catering staff, they all get to go home at the end of the day. So theoretically, they go outside of the bubble to be home, and then they come back in and work inside the bubble. And even though they're being tested, I have friends in the medical profession down in the States, and they've been keeping me up to speed of everything going on down there. And to me, from what they've told me is they trust a positive test, but they don't necessarily trust a negative test, just because COVID is so unpredictable that even though if you test negative, doesn't mean you're not 100% non-asymptomatic. So you could potentially still be carrying it even though you have a negative test. So there is some holes there, I think. And I think luckily in Edmonton we have a low case number, so maybe it won't be exposed. But when I was reading through, I kind of look at things from a non-biased view to see if there's anything that stood out for me. And that's one thing that kind of stood out for me.
I can understand that, because they're with them testing everyone. I mean, the idea is they'll catch it before it's symptomatic, or before it's where somebody else might catch it. But you're right. There's always that potential. Now, with your understanding of both I know you know Edmonton really well. I'm not sure if you're as familiar with what they're doing in Toronto. Or
a little bit. It's basically mirrored, and the reason why I covered Edmonton, well, I'm here, so it's easy for me to cover. But they're hosting the finals here too, so obviously there's going to be more activity in Edmonton. But Toronto, they have basically the similar setup. The hotels aren't as close, and the practice facilities aren't attached to Scotiabank Arena. It's another facilities, the Maple Leafs practice facilities. That's changed names. I know it as the MasterCard Center, but I think it's changed its name to something else now. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different setup. And Toronto is obviously a bigger metropolitan area. So to your point, Edmonton is small enough that they're able to almost literally close off streets, and it doesn't really affect the flow of traffic and stuff. It does a little bit, but in Toronto, you wouldn't be able to do that. If you shut down highways and streets, it would be like gridlock. Already gridlocked in Toronto, but it would cause even more grief.
Now, with how busy you are day to day, are you going to get any time to enjoy these hockey marathons that we're essentially going to have starting next Saturday?
Yeah, you know what? It's, as Canadians, it's kind of weird because we only get the hockey marathons. Yeah, you know what? When I saw the list, to be honest, I actually cut my cable right after COVID started, because when they canceled hockey, I was just like, well, I'm not, because I didn't think they were going to come back this year at all. To be honest, I seeing the logistics behind the scenes of team traveling and even just the play on ice, I was just like, there's no way they're going to be able to salvage the season. And in my personal opinion, the NHL, I know they really wanted to finish the season, and they kind of cited financial reasons basically to kind of finish the season. It was said they might lose $1 billion if they didn't finish the season, just with TV rights deals and the like. But my personal feeling was they should have Probably use the summer to figure out what they're going to do next season, because this season is kind of a huge challenge for them to finish. And I'll give them credit. Like they're being very stubborn. they wanna award Lord Stanley this summer, and I'll give them credit. They're finding a way to do it. But what I think moving forward next season is going to be the real issue, because we're just dealing with playoffs now. But next season, how are they going to do 82 games a season? How are they going to handle travel? How, like, they can't play a season in a bubble. That's not realistic. So in my opinion, they should have used the summer, because I think they need the entire summer to kind of like, hey, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make it safe for fans if we're going to let fans in? Like, how that's going to go on. So anyways, I didn't think the NHL season was going to return. So I phoned my cable company. I was like, you know what? We just watched Netflix anyway, so I'm going to cut my cable. And so I don't even have access to watch it, but I saw the schedule. That's crazy. And you know, if I didn't have 4 kids at home, I might be able to just sit back and binge watch hockey for the next 2 months. But I'll try to watch some games, and like I said before, up here in Canada, we don't really get a summer very often, or very long. Our summer only lasts 4 months. I mean, even now it's today's like 18 degrees Celsius, which is like 65, I think. So it doesn't get terribly hot, and so when we get summer, we like to enjoy summer, and it'll be very interesting to see the viewership numbers, because Canadians, we love hockey, but we also have a short window of opportunity to go out and do stuff outside. So it'll be interesting to see the ratings. I'm sure during the finals, everyone will be tuning in, because by then it'll be September, October.
Yeah.
But for the rest of July and August here, like, we like our summer. We like to be outside as much as we can.
I could see that, where like in Edmonton, the Oilers games love high ratings, but some of the other ones may not do so well until we get further along. So
for sure,
that makes a lot of sense. One last thing I want to ask you about, because again, into the buildings, into the branding, all of that. Between what they're doing with the building and what they're doing with the branding, what do you think of what Seattle's pulling off right now? Because I mean, the building to me is kind of amazing what they're doing there, but the rest of it's interesting to go in a different direction from what a lot of other teams have done in the past.
Yeah, and you kind of got that vibe with Seattle, anyways, because even, you know, they brought on Granado as part of their staff. Like, they're doing things that are not traditional, I guess, in almost every sense of the word. And to be completely honest, I love fresh new things. I love pushing the boundaries and not really staying in the parameters of traditional hockey, so to speak. So I love it when things are new, and that's part of the reason why I love going out to all the rinks, is because I wanted to see, you know, what the Blue Jackets did with their rink. I wanted to see what the Penguins did with their rink. I wanted to see what Tampa Bay did with their rink, and everyone has a different take, and that's, you know, that's what makes it unique. And with Seattle, the rink, you know, to kind of dive into a little bit of another reason why I like Seattle with the construction of the rink, because it's a very expensive, you know, as most people know, to renovate is way more expensive than to just knock it down and build fresh. I mean, Vegas does that all the time with their casinos. They blow them up and build new because it's way more expensive to renovate. But they're able to renovate Climate Change Arena. Is that what it's called? I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's a long
like
word.
That.
Yeah. They're doing it with private funds, and that's one kind of aspect that I touch on in my series is which rink is publicly and privately financed.
Yeah.
And you know, my personal standpoint is that it should be, no matter the public interest, if you could do it in private money without having a burden on the taxpayers, I'm all for. So in Seattle, it's all privately invested, so they can spend as much as they want on that rink, as far as I'm concerned. If it's their money and they want to pump billions into it, they can go on ahead. And the branding, the reveal, what I was really impressed with the branding, the look, and the logo is, I'm pretty in the know with jerseys. Some they'll get leaked to me somehow, but I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear about any leaks about. I think we were all kind of rumored it was going to be the Kraken, but we didn't know for sure. And even the logo and the color scheme, no one had a clue. So I was really impressed not only with the logo and the name, because I think it's, like you said, it's kind of out there, but it's almost like the team. It's almost mythical. They could do a lot of things with it.
Yeah.
And, I remember, I'm old enough now to remember when the Sharks and the Mighty Ducks came onto the scene. And I remember when the Sharks came onto the scene, like that jersey was, everyone wanted to get it. And even the Mighty Ducks movie series was really popular at the time. And I'm sure adults were kind of like, oh God, they're calling a team the Mighty Ducks. How stupid is that? And this is the next chapter. Like, I'm sure people out there are like, oh, the Kraken, like, what a dumb name. Like, they should have done something. But I like it. What are your thoughts on the logo?
I really liked it. I was happy with where they went. I thought Kraken was a great idea for a name because it's just different and strange, and it felt like people connected with it very quickly when it started becoming rumored, the idea of Kraken. I mean, the other idea is Sockeyes. I mean, that would have been fine, I guess. But Kraken was just unique and different. I think the debate on it was best summed up by an interaction I saw on Twitter where somebody tweeted the team's name and said, "Looks like we have a new candidate for dumbest name in sports." And someone responded with, "We literally have two baseball teams named after the color of socks." So, I mean, any sports team name sounds kind of dumb when it first starts, and then as you get used to it, you're like, okay, this is the name, and you like the idea of stuff. I mean, I like the idea of seeing what else they're going to factor in with Kraken to it. I mean, are they going to try and really play up more of the mythical aspects? Are they going to do some fun, goofy pregame show stuff like the Vegas Golden Knights do? I mean, there's a lot of rich history there to deal with that you can really play with and have some fun with, and that's what I like to see. I mean, I'm the kind of guy where I almost sometimes want to see these teams go to almost like theme park Disney levels of theming their stuff and how they pull this stuff off. So,
yeah, and I heard I watched a bit of their live stream when they unveiled it, and I can't remember if it was their CEO, but he kind of dropped a little bit of a hint that they have a third and a fourth jersey already in the can ready to go, and one of them will pay homage to the Metropolitans, because I love that candy striping. I don't know why I love that Christmas striping one. And if you go to EbbetsfieldFlannels.com, they actually sell that jersey. It's pretty pricey, especially for us up in Canada. The U.S.-Canada exchange and the shipping almost doubles the price almost, but it's like it's knitted, it's in that kind of itchy flannel stuff, so it's kind of original and vintage, I guess. But I like that, and I can't wait to see what they have to pay homage to the old team, the original team. But yeah, it's really cool, and to be honest, I think I heard a lot of comments of people that were just genuinely excited to talk about something that's positive about hockey right now, not COVID related, not anything. It's just like, hey, we got a new team coming on, and it's really exciting. Another thing that kind of surprised me about the announcement is just how there wasn't really a build up to it. It was just kind of the night before they released a video saying, hey, tomorrow at 9 a.m. we're doing this. Like, there was no, like you said, with marketing. The Golden Knights, I believe they unveiled their logo first, and then they did the jersey after. So there was a kind of a trickle build up to what the jersey was going to look like. And with Seattle, it was just like, boom, here's your colors, here's your logo, here's your jersey. Everything's out on the table. And that was really cool. And like I said, it was just an exciting thing to talk about, other than just like who's got COVID, who doesn't, how the team's doing, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that was really cool. For yourself, in terms of rinks around the league, have you been to many rinks? Was there any episodes that kind of caught you off guard with, oh, that I didn't expect that?
I mean, I haven't been to that many at this point. I mean, I'm someone who came to hockey kind of late in life, so I've started trying to make some trips here and there. But the only one I've gotten in so far, other than just going to Nationwide for games, is going to the Prudential Center out in New Jersey. Went out there and saw the Jackets play the Devils. I mean, I don't know. I mean, nothing has caught me off guard yet too much because I'm kind of a nerd on this stuff too, so I like to read into it and try and get some of the history on there.
Did you go at the Prudential Center when it had its massive scoreboard, like the new gigantic one? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I haven't been. I know it has. I think that is the largest one in the league, but I haven't been to Prudential since. Like New Jersey's, that's really far away from here. So it's. But I was in there before, so I actually haven't seen the gigantic scoreboard. In my opinion, on pictures, it almost looks too big. But I don't know. What does it look like?
It was. So I was up. I didn't know this when I bought the tickets, but apparently I sat in a section that tends to have some of the more rowdy Jersey fans. So when I was there cheering for the Blue Jackets, they weren't too happy about it. But all I had to do was join them in one Rangers suck chant, and they were all happy about it then. So I was like, yeah, we all hate the Rangers, so we're good. But the Prudential Center, so I've sat in the top row of Nationwide Arena. Mm-hmm. Top row, the higher ends of the Prudential Center go higher from the ice. So that bigger scoreboard doesn't, I don't know, that high up it didn't look as foreboding. Right. Maybe further down it would seem a little too big, but when you're up in the higher parts of the arena, it just kind of fit, and it doesn't block any views of the ice, so it doesn't seem to. It didn't strike me as, oh wow, that's just ridiculous, and right. It's too much for it. It just kind of. It almost felt like if you've ever been in a sports bar and you had one TV and then a TV higher than it. It almost felt like there was just a TV sitting on top of the game that you could watch.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, Prudential Center. Jersey fans are loud. So my last game there was Marty Berder's retirement night.
Oh wow!
And it was just coincidence. And so the old in-game director. From Rexall Place, which is the original home of the Oilers, he actually went to Jersey. So actually, my old boss actually works for the Devils, and two old co-workers. Oilers TV basically went from Oilers to New Jersey, basically. So I know quite a few people in Jersey. But anyways, Berder's retirement night, I'm on ice level, and to be honest, I'm just shooting pictures and filming B-roll just for the sake of doing it. And I was on ice level, and when that Jersey crowd, they cheered Marty or Berder, and they had Patrick Elias, and they had a bunch of old vets come back. Like I think that's maybe one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard in person. It was just so loud, and you're right, yeah, it's kind of that area of the U.S., right? Like it's Jersey, New York, like they're boisterous and loud, and they'll let you know when they don't agree with something. But when I was on the ice with Berder's retirement, it was deafening. It was like, so I remember just having my camera and looking around when they were chanting. I was like, holy crap, this is loud. So yeah, it's Jersey fans are loud.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm kind of cautious about when it comes to this, how these bubbles are going to work, because I mean, I've been to playoff hockey games, and there's that atmosphere where it's just like nobody is sitting down for the whole game. You're yelling yourself hoarse, and I know that energy translates to the guys on the ice, but so I don't know what it's going to feel like when there's no fans, when there's video boards and there's recordings. I mean, how are they going to respond? It's just going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and when it is, even a quarterfinal or semifinal, conference semifinal, when if they score in overtime, like usually if you're the home team and you score, the crowd goes absolutely bananas. And you're right. I think players get a buzz off of not only scoring the goal, winning the game, but they also get a buzz off of the crowd that are going nuts. And even just visually, like Dave Sanford's a photographer for the NHL, and he arrived here in town, and he just was on Instagram and posting about how he's going to put some remote cameras in there. And I was thinking visually, there's always a lot of iconic photos, especially in overtime victories, that the players are celebrating, and you have the crowd going wild behind them. That's now going to be replaced with, covered seats that are empty, and how that's going to look. It is going to be weird. I think at this point with the players and with fans, they're obviously just tired of nothing. So
Yeah.
this is what it is. But it is going to be weird. And there's always been this debate of, will this year's Stanley Cup get an asterisk? Like, will this be kind of like, oh, well, that was the COVID Cup type thing? And I'm kind of on both sides of that, because on one hand, I'm like, they're still going to be competing 110%. It's not, that part is not going to change. What is going to be different is, I do think it's going to be different. Like you say, the crowd brings a certain type of energy into the players' performance, and I do think that affects them.
Yeah.
And when they win the Stanley Cup championship, yeah, I think it's just going to be different. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It is what it is. But, prepping for a game, like, guys get amped up to hear the crowd, during the anthem, like, places like Chicago, the crowd is just deafening. And that gets you jacked up for the game and ready to play. That's not going to be there anymore. And they can pipe in the sound all they want, but
it's not going to be the same.
It's not the same.
I see that. And on the other side of it, I'm almost anticipating one of the higher quality tournaments we've seen, because normally you get the Stanley Cup after guys have played an 82-game regular season and have just beaten themselves. So you get a bunch of injuries, you get guys who are worn down. Now it's like we're coming in off the off season, and we're going into the most important games of the year. So it's going to be just this weird mix. I mean, those playing rounds, I can see some teams coming out just firing and some coming out as duds. I mean, it's going to be a really weird playoff.
Yeah, you're going to have those vets who were kind of banged up towards the end of the season. Now they're going to be 100% ready to go. It is going to be really, it's a complete crapshoot, because I've always been of the opinion, and I think this holds a lot of weight, because if you look at teams like St. Louis, who won the Cup last year, like, they were dead last in the league, and they just caught the win and they built on the momentum right into the playoff. They peaked at the right time, and now you got teams that aren't peaking at all. They're like you said, starting right from zero basically, and they got to get to 100 real quick.
Yeah.
That was always, with teams that go into the playoffs. I mean, even the Oilers, like, we have Connor McDavid. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a Stanley Cup favorite, even though they say you are, because I personally think that you got to hit the playoffs on a good peak rhythm, because even if you have the all-star player on the team, if your team isn't really gelling when the playoffs hit, you're kind of doomed the rest of the way. Like, there are some examples that they come together and pull it off, but like I said, just take St. Louis last year. Like, they were dead last. I can't imagine the morale in that locker room in January, December. Must have been like completely all-time low. And then something happened, and they just clicked, and they just rode that wave all the way to the finals. So, like you said, I don't even know who to really predict. Do you have a prediction?
No.
Yeah,
I think it's silly to try and predict this, because it's just going to be, maybe you catch a goalie who's hot now, maybe somebody starts scoring that you didn't see happening. I mean, how many seasons does a season start, and for 10 games, somebody we've never heard of looks like a Hall of Famer, and then they score 3 goals the rest of the year?
Yep.
I mean, they'll score 8 or 9 in the first 10 games, and then they'll score 3 the rest of the year. So, but if you score 8 or 9 goals in your first 10 games this time around, I mean, that could be the beginning of going for a Conn Smythe. I mean, that's the way it's going to be.
And the X factor going into this too, and another red flag for me with this year's playoffs, is the fact that, I don't know, you can't tell me that, let's say it's Pittsburgh Edmonton finals, and Connor McDavid tests positive game 7. You can't tell me that the NHL is going to be like, I think you mean negative test. No, it's positive. No. I think you mean negative test. Like, it's like concussion protocol. Like, the NHL is all about concussion protocol during the maybe first round, where they're like, oh no, he's got to go to the black room or dark room, and that absolutely vanishes in the Stanley Cup Finals. There's guys could have their heads taken off, and they'd be like, you got to go to the dark room, and they'd be like, screw you, I'm not going. And I think the same thing is going to be with the COVID test. Like, I hope it isn't, and I hope they stick to the letter of the law with that. But the mind has to think that after all this is done, there'll be stories coming out that, oh, you know, so and so tested positive and they didn't do anything about it. So that's another red flag for me. So we'll see.
I don't want you to be right, but I can. And the thing is, it's not even just, oh, they keep the player quiet. I could see the whole team finding out. And if you're in, like you said, if you're in a deciding game of the Stanley Cup, I can see the whole team saying, whatever, we can win the cup. Let's just do it. Because that's the hockey mentality of,
let's just push through
it. I will die to win a Stanley Cup, it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
That's so both it's like so many other things about hockey is that two-edged thing of there's a part of that that's kind of admirable and there's a part of it where it's like, maybe you should lay off here a little bit. So
I've always had my friends and I have always had this debate is if your star player or a star player plays injured, is he a detriment or does he help the team as opposed to putting someone healthy in that's 100%, then having your, a star defenseman who's like maybe at 60%, he has to have his hips and his knees all freezed up. That's always an interesting debate to me because, like you say, it's almost admirable for players. It's that sign of toughness and like, I have my teeth knocked out. It doesn't matter. Send me back out there, coach. But when you're in the playoffs and you have like if you're the Canadians, you have Shea Weber and he can barely skate, is he better than a younger guy who's 100%? It's, experiences, how much does experience come into that? Obviously a lot, because they always do that. Like you always hear when the Stanley Cup or finals, like, oh, so-and-so played with a broken rib. So-and-so played with like, he had to have freezing injected in both his hips. And like, it's always an interesting debate. I always love bringing that one up.
Yeah, hopefully we see it less this year. I'm hoping that with things just starting up, you have less injuries, but I don't know. Maybe you'll have more. It's going to be chaos before we get to the end of this. That's what I'm sure of. It's going to be fun to watch. That I'm sure of on it. All right. Sure. Well, it's been fun talking with you here, Jeff. I mean, if people want to find your stuff, what you're working on, where do they find it?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. My main channel is YouTube. So just search Rinks Around the League. Make sure to hit subscribe. I'm about 80 subscriptions away from being monetized. So that's kind of a big step for me. That's the next goal is when I started the series, I didn't really set out to like make money or anything like that. But it would be nice to have some sort of validation with moving forward because then people like it, I'll keep doing it. So on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. I have all of the reviews of all more than 32 rinks. I think I did reviews of 34 because of Joe Louis Arena and Rexall Place and Nassau Coliseum and Barclays. And then I have a top 10 list. Last season, I started doing guests on the show. This season, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a hybrid of some people probably coming in via Zoom, probably because social distancing. I don't know if I can have them in the studio. But on my social channels on Twitter, Instagram, _@theRinks, as well as Rinks Around the League on Facebook. But follow along. Like I said in my video, I'm going to try my best to kind of keep people in the loop of what's going on. Like last week, there was a big flood in Rogers Place. I don't know if you read about that, but we had a huge storm that flooded. Part of the roof fell in and not in the rink. It was not attached to the rink, so thank God for that. But it did get into like the video control room of the rink, and that's scary. That controls every electronic thing in the arena, so that's kind of scary. But I'll try to keep fans up to speed on everything going on there. But like I said, us Canadians, we're on my summer break, so I'll be on a road trip with my kids here fairly soon. So I'll try to keep everybody in loop, but. Yeah, just watch playoff hockey, and we'll catch everybody up in the fall.
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you. Maybe we'll catch back up with you in the fall or whenever they figure out what's going to happen next season. Who knows how that'll go. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks much.
Thank you. Are you looking for a new jersey? Is there a new player you want? Do you want an Elvis jersey? Do you get excited about? Are you looking forward to the draft when the Blue Jackets make a first round pick and whoever it is you want to get a jersey of them right away? I don't know. Whatever you're looking for, I do know that what you want to do is you want to go to coolhockey.com/THPN when you want to get a jersey and use the promo code THPN, because you're going to get 30% off there at the website. And coolhockey.com, I know that when you're searching around for jerseys online, you're wondering, am I going to get something that's worth it? Am I going to get one of these weird knockoffs where the numbers are all weird? What's going to happen? Coolhockey.com is going to have a great selection for you. They ensure that every product that leaves the doors is done to the specifications of the NHLPA. They don't outsource their jerseys for customization, so they're able to offer you all the best ones, great quality on it. So again, go to coolhockey.com/THPN, so /THPN, and use the promo code THPN for all your hockey jersey needs. Again, coolhockey.com/THPN. I want to thank Jeff Nash for doing that interview again. It was really cool. I've really liked his YouTube channel. Go check it out. Rinks Around the League. Subscribe to his channel. It's entertaining. It's worth it. It's a good time. Last story I wanted to touch on. There's a lot of stories going on in the NHL right now. This one happened today on Sunday, and it's just craziness. And I'm going to put in my 2 cents on it before we close out this week. And it's what's happened in Arizona with their GM, John Chayka. Now, first thing, there's been some weirdness around them for a while, as far as it seemed like John Chayka was having issues. I think this all started with, there was a dinner where the ownership took Taylor Hall out and his agent to dinner, and we're talking about trying to sign a new contract, and John Chayka wasn't there. And that really started a lot of speculation as to, wait, why isn't the GM at a conversation with who could be your big free agent, the guy you're kind of, have your whole team built around at this point? And so that led to some speculation. Well, in the last 48 hours, it's all really come to a head, because there's been these stories coming out that apparently at one point somebody said that Chayka wanted to interview for a position somewhere outside of hockey. And now we have people telling us that's not what happened. And it all culminated today in the Coyotes releasing a statement where they fired John Chayka. Let me pull up the exact thing. So if you're watching the video version of this, you can see exactly what it says there. But in it, they essentially call him a quitter. No, it's not essentially. Let me get the exact quote of it here for you folks. But it's bizarre, because that is one of those. Is it not even on their homepage? Did they take it off of their homepage? That's amazing if they did that. It's not even on their homepage. That is hilarious. So essentially, in the thing, they called him a quitter. They said he quit on them right before this. I mean, it reads like some teenager writing a letter who'd just been spurned on a date to the prom or something. And then Chayka releases something later, just a few minutes later, essentially saying that he wishes the team the best of luck, and the person who's listed as the interim GM, he wishes him the best of luck and says he works great. And then he threw shade and pretty much said all of these problems are on ownership. Which is just crazy. I mean, that all this is coming out as the team is flying into Edmonton to go into this bubble. So, I don't know what happened yet. Nobody really knows what happened yet. Let me say this, though. The Coyotes could not have been dumber in how they handled this. And this is why I say it. They could have made their statement more muted. And they didn't. They went hard. And what that means is, I mean, quit is a crazy word to use in pro sports. To say somebody quit on a team, them's fighting words as far as pro sports are concerned. As far as any sport is concerned, to say you quit on somebody is just about as low an insult as you can get. Maybe calling somebody soft is about the next lowest thing. But that's crazy. And what you've done, if you're the Coyotes, is you have ensured that when these Zoom calls happen with media for the Coyotes, all of them are going to be asked about John Chayka quitting on the team. Why would you do that? I mean, if the story has reached a place where you have to give an answer about what's happened with Chayka, you can do it. You find some way to gloss it over and try and make it not a big deal. And that way your players don't have this thing hanging over them. But now they will. Going into this thing where they have to play a 5-game series against the Nashville Predators for the season, now they have to answer it. It's insane. It's crazy to me. I don't get it. It was a bad choice on their part, but here we are. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. Again, a bit of a long show today, but hey, this is one of the craziest times I've seen in league history, so we're heading into it with some big stuff. So thank you all for listening, and go Jackets. Please connect with the show on Twitter @ShootOnesPod, and thank you for listening to the Shoot Ones Podcast.